The bass was low, barely more than a pulse, rolling out of the open windows of the parked SUV like a slow heartbeat. Marcus Reed kept it that way on purpose. Sunday afternoons were for quiet victories, picking up his daughter from piano lessons, letting the city breathe around them, reminding himself that peace didn't have to be loud. The police light shattered it anyway. Red and blue washed across the windshield. His daughter, Ava, still in the passenger seat, her small fingers tightening around her backpack strap. Marcus reached for the volume knob instinctively, turning it down even further until the music disappeared completely. A white officer approached, one hand resting near his belt, eyes sharp and unimpressed. "You think this is a concert," the officer said, leaning down, voice carrying just enough for nearby pedestrians to hear. Marcus swallowed. "Officer, the car's parked. I was waiting for my kid." The officer's gaze flicked to Ava, then back to Marcus. Cold. Measuring. Funny how there's always an excuse. People slowed on the sidewalk. Phones tilted. Ava's foot tapped once, then stopped. Marcus felt a familiar burn. Old, practiced, dangerous. He kept his voice calm. "Is there a noise complaint?" The officer smiled without warmth. "I decide what's a problem." That line landed like a blade. The radio crackled behind the officer. He straightened, glancing at the license plate again, longer this time. Marcus watched the man's jaw tighten, watched his confidence shift into something sharper. The officer stepped back and said, "So, step out of the vehicle." Marcus opened the door slowly. Behind him, Ava whispered, "Dad." The door closed. The music stayed silent, and the officer's hand rose toward his radio. Marcus Reed checked the rearview mirror before he did anything else. Ava was still buckled in, humming softly, her legs swinging just above the floor mat. The piano studio door across the street had already closed, the late afternoon sun turning the glass into a dull mirror of the block. He turned the music down another notch. The song was one he'd helped shape years ago, a bass line he could recognize blind, but no one else would. That anonymity used to feel like freedom. The flash of red and blue cut through it. "Dad," Ava said. "It's okay," Marcus replied, already rolling the window down. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. The police cruiser stopped behind them at an angle, blocking the curb. The officer stepped out slowly, like time belonged to him. White, mid-40s, sunglasses even though the sun was already sinking. Marcus kept both hands on the wheel. "What seems to be the problem, officer?" Marcus asked. The officer leaned down, eyes flicking over the interior of the car. "That noise." Marcus blinked. "So, you heard me." The officer nodded toward the speakers. "This isn't a block party." Marcus glanced at the empty street. "The car's parked. I turned it down." The officer smiled thinly. "After I pulled up—" "I was waiting for my daughter," Marcus said, nodding toward Ava. Ava straightened, her eyes wide. "Hi," she said, quiet and polite. The officer looked at her, then back at Marcus. "You people always have a reason." Marcus felt something tighten behind his ribs. "I don't understand," Marcus said carefully. "Is there citation?" The officer straightened. "Step out of the vehicle." "Officer," Marcus said, lowering his voice, "my child is here." "So," the officer replied. A woman across the street slowed her walk. A man near the corner lifted his phone halfway, unsure. Marcus opened the door. The pavement was warm under his shoes. The officer moved closer, close enough that Marcus could smell coffee on his breath. "You know," the officer said, "if you just follow instructions, this wouldn't be difficult." Marcus nodded once. "I am following them." "Don't get smart." "I'm not." The officer's radio crackled. He glanced at it, then back at Marcus. "License and registration." Marcus reached slowly, narrating each movement. "They're in my wallet." "Take your time," the officer said, though his hand hovered near his belt. Ava's voice trembled. "Daddy." "I'm right here," Marcus said without turning. The officer studied the documents longer than necessary. His jaw shifted. "You live around here?" "Yes." "Music business?" the officer asked suddenly, reading the occupation line. Marcus hesitated. "Yes." The officer's eyebrow lifted. Figures? What does that mean? Marcus asked. The officer stepped back. Turn around. Marcus froze. Am I being detained? The officer's voice hardened. Turn. Around. Marcus did. Cold metal pressed briefly against his wrist before the officer stopped, reconsidered, then stepped back again. Stay right there. Cars passed. Someone whispered. Ava stared straight ahead, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. This was how it happened. Quietly. Publicly. For nothing. The officer spoke into his radio again, lower this time. Marcus listened to the static, his heart pounding, knowing that whatever came next would not be small. Marcus didn't remember the drive home. He remembered the silence. Ava sat rigid in the back seat now, her backpack clutched to her chest like a shield. The officer had eventually stepped away, radio crackling with an answer Marcus never heard clearly. No ticket. No apology. Just a warning delivered with a smirk and the reminder that Marcus was lucky it didn't go further. Lucky. Lena was waiting at the door when they arrived. She took one look at Marcus's face and dropped her keys on the entry table. What happened? She asked. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Ava walked past him without a word, shoes still on, straight to her room. The door clicked shut. That bad? Lena said quietly. Marcus exhaled. Worse. They sat at the kitchen table while the house settled around them. Marcus described the stop in fragments, lights, tone, the way the officer's eyes never softened even when Ava spoke. Lena listened without interrupting, her jaw tight, fingers wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. He cuffed you? She asked. Not all the way, Marcus said. Just enough to remind me he could. Lena nodded once. We're filing a complaint. Marcus hesitated. I don't want Ava dragged into this. She's already in it, Lena replied. So are you. Later, Marcus stood outside Ava's room. He knocked once. Sweetheart, he said. No answer. He opened the door slowly. Ava was sitting on the bed, knees pulled up, staring at her piano practice sheet. Did I do something wrong? She asked without looking up. Marcus crossed the room in 2 steps. No, never. None of this was because of you. But he was mad, she said, because of the music. Marcus swallowed. He wasn't mad at the music. Ava finally looked at him. Then why? Marcus searched for a sentence that wouldn't break her. He found none. Sometimes, he said carefully, people decide who you are before they listen to you. Ava frowned. That's not fair. No, Marcus said. It's not. The next morning, Marcus sat in a narrow office at the precinct, fluorescent lights humming overhead. A man in a pressed shirt slid a form across the desk. Internal Affairs will review it. The man said, tone practice. These things take time. Marcus filled in the blanks with steady hands. Name, date, badge number. What happens to the officer? Marcus asked. The man smiled politely. We don't discuss personnel matters. So nothing, Marcus said. The smile tightened. We take all complaints seriously. Outside, Marcus leaned against his car and closed his eyes. His phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from his manager, 2 texts from an artist asking if he'd seen the video. Video? He opened the link. The angle was bad. Cropped. Shaky. It caught the officer's voice more than his face. Marcus's own words were clear. Calm. Almost attached. You people always have a reason. The comments were already multiplying. At home, Lena watched the clip in silence. They cut before the worst part, she said. It was all bad, Marcus replied. Ava didn't want dinner. She didn't want music. When Lena suggested piano practice, Ava shook her head. I don't like it anymore, she said. That night, Marcus lay awake listening to the city outside their window. Sirens, tires, bass from somewhere down the block. He thought about the email he hadn't opened yet, the invitation to speak at a charity showcase downtown, the one celebrating producers who had shaped the sound of a generation. He'd planned to decline. In the morning, his lawyer called. Marcus, the department reached out. For what? Marcus asked. To clarify, the lawyer said. They want to understand your perspective. Marcus laughed once. Sharp. They had it. They just didn't want it. They also asked, the lawyer added, if you'd be open to an informal resolution. Marcus pictured the officer's smile, the way Ava's hands had shaken. No, Marcus said, I want it on record. When he hung up, he found Ava at the piano, fingers hovering above the keys. She didn't play. Marcus sat beside her. You don't have to, he said. Ava nodded. I know. After a moment, she pressed one key. Soft, careful. Then another. Marcus listened. The sound was fragile, but it was still there, and somewhere, unseen, the system waited to see how much it could take before breaking him, or how much he would force it to change. Officer Daniel Hargreave didn't think of himself as a racist. That mattered to him. He sat in the locker room after shift change, unlacing his boots while the television mounted in the corner replayed the same clip again and again. The sound was off, captions scrolling beneath the footage like an accusation. Local father claims police harassment. Hargreave snorted. Claims. He muttered. Man, you're famous, Officer Mills said, tossing his cap onto the bench. Didn't know you were dealing with celebrities. Hargreave forced a grin. Just another noise complaint. Mills glanced at the screen. That guy wasn't loud. You weren't there, Hargreave said. Context matters. Sure, Mills replied, already bored. Everything's context now. In the briefing room, the captain cleared his throat before anyone spoke. Let's keep this professional, he said. There's a complaint filed. Internal affairs will do their thing. Someone laughed quietly. The captain shot a look around the room. I said professional. Hargreave folded his arms. I followed procedure. No one saying you didn't, the captain replied. But optics matter. That word again. Optics. Like the problem wasn't what happened, just how it looked. Later, Hargreave sat with Sergeant Keller, a man who trained him years ago. You didn't touch him? Keller asked. Didn't need to, Hargreave said. You raised your voice. He was argumentative. Keller nodded slowly. They always are. Hargreave felt a flicker of relief. Exactly. Keller leaned back. Look, Dan, these neighborhoods, you got to establish control early. Otherwise they think they can push. They? Hargreave asked. Keller didn't answer. In his report, Hargreave chose his words carefully. Subject playing amplified music. Subject initially uncooperative. Officer acted in interest of public peace. Child present. Officer maintained restraint. He read it twice before submitting. At home, his wife scrolled through her phone while he ate dinner. Your name's trending, she said. Internet nonsense, Hargreave replied. They are saying you targeted him. Hargreave put his fork down. He fit the profile. She looked up. What profile? Come on, he said. Parked car. Loud music. Middle of the afternoon. That's not a profile, she said. That's nothing. Hargreave stood. You weren't there. She watched him walk away, unsettled by how often he said that lately. The next day, internal affairs called him in. The room was smaller than he expected. 2 investigators. Neutral faces. Walk us through your decision-making, one said. Hargreave repeated the story he practiced. Noise complaint. Public concern. Officer discretion. Was there an actual complaint? The other asked. No, Hargreave admitted. But I anticipated one. The investigator raised an eyebrow. Based on what? Hargreave hesitated. Experience. They showed him the full video next. Another angle. Longer. The moment where he said, you people always have a reason. The room went quiet. I didn't mean it like that. Hargreave said quickly. Like what? One investigator asked. Racially. The investigator folded his hands. How did you mean it? Hargreave opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Afterward, he sat alone in his car, gripping the steering wheel. The city looked different through the windshield. Hostile. Watching. His phone buzzed. A message from the union rep. We've got your back. Don't say more than you have to. That helped. A little. But then another message arrived. A link. Grammy-winning producer identified in police stop video. Hargreaves stared at the headline. Grammy. Producer. The man in the video wasn't just some guy. A heat crept up Hargreaves' neck. He imagined the meeting rooms, the suits, the donors, the kind of people who made problems stick. They didn't say that, he muttered. He thought of the child's face, the way she'd gone quiet. For the first time since the stop, doubt edged in, not about the system, but about the consequences. Because control only worked when no one powerful was watching. And now, someone was. Marcus learned what it meant to lose control of the story. It started with a call from Jamal, an old engineer he hadn't spoken to in years. Man, Jamal said, not even saying hello, why didn't you tell me you were out here going viral? Marcus rubbed his face. That wasn't the plan. Well, it's happening anyway, Jamal replied. Everybody knows it's you now. By noon, the video was everywhere. Not just a shaky clip, but slowed down edits, captions added, commentary layered over the silence. People dissected his tone, the officer's posture, Ava's stillness in the passenger seat. Marcus didn't watch most of it. He didn't need to. Reporters called next, then bloggers, then a national outlet that wanted a statement by the end of the day. Lena screened the calls while Marcus sat on the couch, phone face down, as if it might burn through the cushion. I never wanted this, Marcus said. Lena nodded. I know. At school pickup, Ava walked out slower than usual. Her teacher smiled too brightly. Ava's been very quiet today, the teacher said. We're keeping an eye on her. In the car, Ava stared out the window. Why do they know you? She asked. Marcus gripped the steering wheel. Because of my job. Because of the video? She pressed. Yes. Did you do something wrong? Ava asked. No, Marcus said firmly. Ava nodded, but her shoulders stayed tense. That night, Marcus attended a listening session he'd promised months ago. A small studio. Young artists. He almost canceled, but Jamal insisted. You disappearing sends a wrong message, Jamal said. They're already talking. Inside the studio, conversation stopped when Marcus walked in. One artist shook his head. Man, I saw that video. Another added, that was messed up. Marcus forced a smile. Let's work. But the music felt heavier. Every pause stretched. Every lyric seemed to circle back to the same themes. Control, silence, resistance. During a break, a producer leaned over. You suing? I filed a complaint, Marcus replied. The producer snorted. Good luck. On the drive home, Marcus saw himself reflected in storefront glass. Not the man he knew, but the one the internet had decided he was. Victim, symbol, headline. At home, Lena sat at the table with her laptop open. They want you on camera, she said. Prime time. Marcus shook his head. I don't want Ava seeing this everywhere. She already is, Lena replied gently. Kids talk. Parents talk. As if on cue, Ava appeared in the doorway. Can I ask something? She said. Anything, Marcus replied. Why didn't anyone help you? She asked. When the man was being mean. Marcus felt the question settle in his chest. Some people don't want to get involved, he said. Some people think it's safer to watch. That's not fair, Ava said. No, Marcus agreed. The next morning, Marcus met his lawyer downtown. Glass building. Neutral tones. They are nervous, the lawyer said. The department, I mean. Because of the video? Marcus asked. And because of who you are, the lawyer replied. Your resume doesn't hurt. Marcus leaned back. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't, the lawyer said. But it does. On the sidewalk outside, a stranger stopped him. Hey, the man said. I saw what happened to you. Marcus braced himself. The man nodded. Thank you for staying calm. Marcus blinked. That's it. That's it, the man said. My kid was watching. That night, Marcus finally opened the email he'd been avoiding. The charity showcase. Subject line, honoring excellence and impact. He read the words slowly. Lena watched him. You don't have to go. Marcus thought of Ava's hand shaking in the car, thought of the officer's voice. Yes, Marcus said. I do. Later, Ava sat at the piano again. She played haltingly, stopping and starting. Do you still like music? Marcus asked. Ava shrugged. I like it when it's quiet. Marcus nodded. Me too. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere online, arguments raged. Somewhere in an office, a department calculated risk. Marcus closed his eyes and listened to Ava's uneven melody. The echoes were everywhere now, and there was no going back to silence. The lights of the Wilcox Theatre were warm, almost forgiving. Marcus stood just offstage, smoothing the front of his jacket while voices rose and fell beyond the curtain. Laughter. Applause. The comfortable hum of a room full of people who expected celebration, not confrontation. You good? Jamal asked beside him. Marcus nodded. As I'll ever be. In the front row, Lena sat with Ava. Ava's feet didn't reach the floor. She swung them gently, eyes wide as she took in the chandeliers, the velvet seats, the cameras tucked discreetly along the walls. This is fancy, Ava whispered. Lena smiled. Your dad's work built some of this. Ava frowned. The music. Yes, Lena said. The music. Backstage, a coordinator adjusted Marcus's MIC. We're running a little behind, she said. But once we introduce you, it'll be quick. A few words. Then the award. Award? Marcus asked. She blinked. You didn't know. Marcus shook his head. I thought I was presenting. Well, she said brightly. Surprise. The host's voice carried through the curtain. Tonight, we honor someone whose fingerprints are on songs you've all loved, someone who shaped sound without ever asking for the spotlight. The screen behind the stage flickered to life. Marcus's face appeared. Studio photos, album covers, a montage of artists thanking a man most of the audience had never seen before. A ripple moved through the crowd. That's him, someone whispered. The host continued. A mentor, a father, a Grammy-winning producer whose commitment to music education has changed lives. The curtain parted. Applause filled the room, louder than Marcus expected. He stepped into the light, momentarily blinded. Cameras flashed. Somewhere, a phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. Marcus took the award with steady hands. Thank you, he said, voice even. I wasn't planning to speak long. A soft laugh moved through the audience. But lately, Marcus continued, I've been reminded that visibility isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's a responsibility. The room quieted. I've spent my career behind the glass, he said, letting other voices be heard. And I'm proud of that. But this week, my daughter watched me be treated as a problem before I was treated as a person. Ava stiffened in her seat. I stayed calm because she was watching, Marcus said, not because I wasn't afraid. The applause that followed was slower, heavier. Backstage afterward, phones rang nonstop. A city council aide, a non-profit director, a representative from the police department. The last one made Marcus pause. They want to express regret, the lawyer said quietly. They're requesting a meeting. Now? Marcus asked. Tomorrow. Why now? Marcus said. The lawyer didn't answer. The next morning, Marcus sat across from two department officials in a conference room that smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. A framed mission statement hung on the wall. We value community trust, one official said. Marcus nodded. I'm sure. We regret how the situation was perceived, the other added. Perceived? Marcus repeated. The official cleared his throat. We weren't aware of your background at the time. Marcus leaned forward. Would it have mattered? A silence followed. We want to move forward constructively, the first official said. Perhaps a joint statement. About what? Marcus asked. About mutual respect. Marcus exhaled slowly. My respect wasn't the issue. Outside, reporters waited. Inside, the officials exchanged looks. We can make this easier, one said. For who? Marcus replied. That afternoon, Ava came home with a flyer. Dad, she said, They are playing your songs in music class. Marcus smiled faintly. That's nice. Ava studied him. Does that mean they won't be mean anymore? Marcus crouched to her level. It means people are listening now. But they didn't before, Ava said. No, Marcus agreed. That evening, Marcus watched the news. A split screen showed his face beside the officer's badge photo. Sources confirm, the anchor said, that the individual involved is a Grammy-winning producer. Marcus turned the TV off. He sat at the piano with Ava. She placed her hands on the keys, more confidently this time. Play, Marcus said. She did. The notes filled the room, stronger now, clearer. Outside, the city shifted. Inside the department, strategies were rewritten. Somewhere, Officer Hargreave watched the same news Marcus had just turned off. The difference was, now everyone knew who Marcus Reed was, and they couldn't pretend it didn't matter. The courtroom smelled like old paper and disinfectant, a place where stories were flattened into facts and feelings learned to wait their turn. Marcus sat at the narrow table beside his lawyer, hands folded, breathing slow. Lena sat behind him with Ava, who swung her feet less now, her posture straighter. Older, Officer Hargreave entered from the side door. He didn't look at Marcus. The judge adjusted her glasses. We're here to address allegations of misconduct, she said. Proceed. The department attorney spoke first, voice smooth, measured. This was a misunderstanding, he said. A routine interaction misinterpreted in a climate of heightened sensitivity. Marcus's lawyer stood. Misinterpretation doesn't explain a pattern. A screen flickered on. Emails appeared, internal messages, clipped and careful. Subject has history of resistance. Maintain authority early. Noise complaints tend to escalate in certain demographics. A murmur rippled through the room. Hargreave shifted in his seat. Marcus's lawyer turned to him. Officer, do you recall writing these? Hargreave cleared his throat. Yes. What did you mean by certain demographics? Hargreave hesitated. Areas with higher incidence. Answer the question, the judge said. I meant neighborhoods, Hargreave replied. And who lives in those neighborhoods? The lawyer asked. Silence. Marcus felt Ava's eyes on his back. The lawyer continued. Is it department policy to anticipate complaints without evidence? No, Hargreave said. Then why did you? Experience, Hargreave replied, echoing himself. Marcus's lawyer nodded. Experience shaped by what? Hargreave's jaw tightened. The job. Marcus took the stand next. He described the afternoon plainly. The music, the light, Ava's voice. When the officer said, You people always have a reason. What did you hear? The lawyer asked. Marcus didn't rush. I heard a judgment, he said. I heard that I was already guilty. The department's attorney stood. Objection. Speculation. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. Marcus looked at Hargreave for the first time since entering the room. I heard my daughter go quiet. Ava's fingers curled into Lena's sleeve. The department tried to reframe it. Officer safety, the attorney said. Split-second decisions. Marcus replied calmly. There was time. There was space. There was a child. The judge leaned forward. During recess, reporters crowded the hallway. Marcus stayed seated. Why don't you say something? A reporter called. Marcus shook his head. I said enough. In a side room, the department's representatives huddled. The word settlement drifted through the air. Back in the courtroom, the judge reviewed prior complaints against Hargreave. Unsubstantiated. Dismissed. Closed. Why were these not disclosed earlier? The judge asked. The department attorney stiffened. They were deemed irrelevant. The judge's voice hardened. Patterns are never irrelevant. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavier. Hargreave took the stand again. This time, his voice wavered. I didn't intend harm, he said. Marcus's lawyer responded quietly. Intent doesn't erase impact. The judge called for closing statements. The department spoke of training, reforms, commitments. Marcus's lawyer spoke of dignity. When it was over, the judge addressed the room. This court finds sufficient evidence of misconduct, she said. Disciplinary action is warranted. A collective breath released. Ava squeezed Marcus's hand as they stood. Outside, the rain soaked the pavement. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. "Do you feel vindicated?" someone asked. Marcus paused. "I feel tired." At home, the house felt different. Quieter, but not empty. Ava sat at the piano without being asked. She played a scale cleanly, confidently. "Dad," she said, not turning around, "did you win?" Marcus considered the question. "We moved something," he said. Ava nodded. "That's good." Later that night, Marcus stood alone in the kitchen, reading the department's official statement on his phone. Officer placed on suspension pending further review. Pending. Lena joined him. "It's not everything," she said. "No," Marcus agreed, "but it's not nothing." Outside, the rain washed the street clean. Somewhere downtown, meetings were being scheduled, policies revised, statements drafted. Pressure had done its work. Not enough to heal everything. Enough to crack the surface. The announcement came on a Friday afternoon, time for minimum impact. Marcus heard it first from his lawyer, then from the news alerts lighting up his phone. The department released a statement dense with language and careful with blame. Officer Daniel Hargreave was suspended without pay. An independent review was underway. Mandatory bias training would be expanded. "Is that it?" Marcus asked. "For now," the lawyer replied. "There may be more." Online, reactions split cleanly down familiar lines. Some praised accountability. Others called it a witch hunt. Marcus didn't read most of it. He had learned how quickly sympathy could turn into suspicion. At the precinct, Hargreave entered his locker under quiet observation. No one spoke directly to him. Mills avoided eye contact. Keller nodded once, tight and unreadable. "You'll be back," Keller said under his breath. Hargreave wasn't so sure. At home, Ava brought a permission slip to the table. "They are doing a music assembly," she said. "They want you to come." Marcus hesitated. "Do you want me to?" Ava thought for a moment. "Yes," she said, "but only if you stand with me." "I can do that," Marcus replied. The assembly took place in the gymnasium. Folding chairs lined in uneven rows. Marcus stood at the microphone while Ava waited beside him. Small hand wrapped around his finger. "I make music," Marcus told the students. "But more importantly, I listen." A hand shot up. "Were you scared?" a boy asked. Marcus nodded. "Yes." Ava squeezed his hand tighter. Afterward, a teacher pulled Marcus aside. "Thank you," she said. "Some of our kids needed to see that." Outside the school, a man approached Marcus hesitantly. "I was there," he said, "on the sidewalk that day." Marcus waited. "I didn't say anything," the man continued. "I should have." Marcus studied his face. "You can next time," he said. The city council held a hearing the following week. Marcus testified again, shorter this time. The questions were broader now. Policy, training, oversight. "What would change look like?" a council member asked. Marcus answered honestly. "It looks like believing people before deciding they're a threat." Across town, Hargreave sat in his living room, television on mute. His union rep's messages grew less confident. His wife watched him closely. "You still think you did nothing wrong?" she asked. Hargreave didn't answer immediately. "I followed what I was taught," he said finally. She nodded. "And now?" Hargreave stared at his hands. "Now I'm paying for it." The review concluded quietly. The findings were clear. Use of biased language. Escalation without cause. Failure to de-escalate in presence of a minor. Termination followed. The headline was brief. The impact wasn't. Marcus read it once, then set his phone down. No celebration rose in him. No relief. Just a dull acknowledgement that something had ended. Ava looked up from her homework. "Is it over?" Marcus thought of the comments still coming in. The emails. The people who would never change their minds. One part of it, he said. That night, Marcus returned to the studio. The room smelled like dust and cables and possibility. He sat at the console and pressed play. The track was unfinished. He'd abandoned it months ago. He leaned forward and adjusted the levels. In the city, the department held a press conference. Promises were made. Timelines announced. Skepticism followed. At home, Ava practiced piano without flinching when sirens passed. Marcus listened from the hallway. Consequences had come. Not clean, not complete, but real. And in their wake, something quieter began to grow, an insistence that this moment would not be buried, that this story would not be softened until it meant nothing. The system bent, not because it wanted to, but because it had been forced to see. The city moved on faster than Marcus expected. New headlines replaced old ones. Another video, another name, another cycle of outrage and fatigue. The department promises faded into updates buried beneath weekend news. Reform became a word people argued about instead of practiced. Marcus noticed a quiet first. No more reporters outside the house. No more late-night calls from producers asking for comment. The world had found something else to watch. At breakfast, Ava hummed while pouring cereal. The sound was small, unguarded. "You're singing again," Marcus said. Ava shrugged. "I didn't stop. I just did it quieter." That landed harder than Marcus expected. He drove Ava to school that morning, the radio off. When they reached the curb, Ava paused. "Dad!" "Yes." "If that man hadn't known who you were," she said carefully, "would it still have mattered?" Marcus didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said finally. "It should have." Ava nodded, accepting the truth without comfort. "Okay." At the studio later, Marcus worked with a young singer who kept apologizing. "Sorry," she said, stopping mid-take. "I mess up when people are listening." Marcus leaned back. "Then you're not messing up," he said. "You're learning." She tried again. This time, her voice held. That afternoon, Marcus received a letter from the city. No logo, no apology, just confirmation that his complaint had contributed to updated training protocols. He folded it once and placed it in a drawer. Not a trophy, not closure, just evidence. That evening, Lena found him sitting at the piano with Ava. He wasn't playing. Ava was. A simple piece, steady and sure. "She's ready for recital again," Lena said softly. Ava glanced up. "Only if Dad comes early." "I will," Marcus said. Front row. After Ava went to bed, Marcus and Lena sat on the porch, the city breathing around them. "Do you regret it?" Lena asked. Marcus considered the question, the cost, the exposure, the way fears still flickered when police lights passed. "No," he said, "but I wish it hadn't been necessary." Lena nodded. "Me too." A week later, Marcus stood in the community center, watching Ava walk onto a small stage. The piano bench was too big for her, but she climbed onto it anyway, feet dangling. She looked out at the audience, found Marcus, and smiled. She played without hesitation. The room listened. Marcus felt something loosen inside him, not erased, not healed, but released enough to breathe. Afterward, a woman approached him. "My son saw your story," she said. "It helped him talk." Marcus thanked her, knowing the words would never feel adequate. On the drive home, Ava leaned her head against the window. "Dad," she said, "I think music is brave." Marcus smiled. "I think you are." At a red light, a police cruiser pulled up beside them. Marcus's muscles tensed automatically. The light changed. The cruiser drove on. Marcus exhaled slowly. What remained wasn't justice wrapped in a bow. It wasn't safety guaranteed. It wasn't a system redeemed. What remained was memory, witness, a record that refused to disappear. What remained was a father who stayed calm so his daughter could stay whole. What remained was a child who learned that silence could be broken, not by shouting, but by standing. The music didn't save them, but it carried them forward. And sometimes that was enough.